snap.
Mic check, mic check.
We came back.
Mic check, mic check.
Say it with me.
Mic check, mic check.
Now set it free.
All right, y'all, we are back. Episode 6, season 3, DannieBSpeaks podcast. We're going to, I told you, I bring a lot of different stuff when I'm recording, if you've listened to anything that I've done in the past, if you have read my blog when I had that, then you know that I'm all over the place. Even if you follow me on social media, you never know what you're going to get. So let's go ahead and get into this episode. So we're going to cover a few different topics of things that I have been asked about over the years, especially since I haven't been doing as much. Now I'm just getting back into it. Some of the things I'm going to talk about, I did cover on the very first podcast of this season, episode 1 of season 3. So, let's just go ahead and get into the show. Nothing else to discuss. There'll probably be no media this episode. It's just, going to be just me just going. So the first thing I want to talk about is blogging in 2026. Is it still relevant? Am I still writing? Now, blogging to a lot of people seems outdated, even though there are tons of articles being posted. There are tons of websites that are dedicated to people blogging, to where you don't have to have your own site. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I do think blogging is still relevant in 2026. The only reason why I stopped my blog was because, and I mentioned it before, I've mentioned it in the past as well, that I just wasn't really into it after a lot of my stuff got lost. It was like my art, got lost. And it was just something as to where I just couldn't get back into the swing of things because I felt like a part of me was gone. And even though I was building the website, I was doing, all these things. I had like series that I wanted to write about, which I still am, and also will be doing some podcast about them as well. But there were a lot of things that I just couldn't get back into in a artistic, I guess you could say, because, I've looked at it as my art. But it's just something that I just couldn't get back into the groove of it. I was steady writing. Like I told you, I'm an analog person. Sometimes I write on my phone, sometimes I write on my iPad. But for the most part, I like to write notes down and just go from there. That's how, like, I would write my blog post. I would have a series of, bullet points or, just some notes that I would, just some, from some ideas that I had, and I would just freestyle that way. And that's always worked for me. Even when I was writing term papers or essays, whatever, when I was in school, it was the same thing. So that's just how I've always, how I would always write, and it worked for me. I never really wrote out like a whole article in one sitting because it just never it would come to me like if I would just have things that I would want to talk about, certain points that I would want to make, and then I would elaborate off of that. And as you could tell, I kind of get stumbled on my words. I kind of get a little sidetracked, whatever. I do suffer from ADHD. So, and it's not an excuse, it's real. I do have anxiety very badly. So, like if I feel like I'm getting sidetracked when I'm trying to do this, um, then I kind of like lose my train of thought and I have to try to get back real quick. I'm better than I used to be, believe it or not, but I still do have those issues. And that's why I say I'm all over the place. My podcast, my writing is really who I am. And um, I've the reason why I got into podcasting was because I used to do college radio and I did internet radio. I did an apprenticeship at Radio One here in Columbus. Um, when was it? Like, who? That was almost 20 years ago. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was like almost 20 years ago. It was 20 years ago. Wow. Because I think I started doing that in '05, and I did it till like '07 maybe. And then I worked as a board operator for Radio One, um, the graveyard shift. So, and I'll get more into that stuff later, when I talk about some other things. I've talked about it before briefly, but, it's just like the writing and the podcasting to me just went together. And when there was more I wanted to say when it came to writing, then I was like, oh, it'd be better to do a podcast and just talk. Like I've done radio before, I have experience. And with this, I can control my own thing, I can do my own thing. Um, and, if I'm putting something out there, and even if 20 people listen to it, I'm good with that. Eventually, the YouTube channel is going to grow. A lot of people keep asking about it. A lot of go, oh, so what's going on with your YouTube channel? It's here. It's been here, but now I'm more active on it. So subscribe to my YouTube. It'd be much appreciated. But in saying that, where am I going to put my writing? Because as I mentioned, I've been writing. I still write. It's something that, I do daily pretty much. Um, I've been thinking about getting a Substack. So I don't know if I'm going to really want to put more into building another website and doing all that, even though I enjoy doing that stuff, but I'm kind of over it. You know what I mean? And um, I mean, I could do like a blog spot. They still have blog spot. That's actually where I started, was on Blogspot back in the day. So I don't know if I'll do that, because I think it'll remind me a little too much of, you know, my DannieBSpeaks.com site that I have. And I still own the domain and I probably will keep it, forever just in case I want to um, bring it back or use it for something else. But I am thinking about getting a Substack. Now, the only thing about a Substack is that, like sometimes to get certain information, you have to pay. Now, no shade, but I'm not really worried about people I know paying or whatever because my biggest supporters are people I don't even know. I've met so many people, um, over the years that I've been writing um, and doing podcasts of people I don't even know. Get more support that way. And, it's fine, whatever, as long as you're getting the support and your work is getting, you know, seen. I'm good with that. So I am going to look more into Substack. I know a lot of people use it, and I think that it could be beneficial to me getting my writing out there. It'll be protected, um, and it's a big platform. So we'll see. We'll see, but I am going to look more into that. I am more focused on my YouTube channel, but I do want to get my writing put out there and some things that I've been writing about. I have a lot of short stories that I've been focusing on, and maybe even a series, and that would be nice to put on there. So, mentally, I'm getting back into, you know, what I wanted to do from the beginning. So, we'll just see how it plays out with Substack. But I am going to look more into it. I've been focusing more on this, but I'm gonna get there. So, you know, I think it'll work out, but we'll see. So, there is that. Let's see. What am I going to? Let's talk about losing yourself. So, I think it's very easy to do when you're going through a lot of changes mentally, physically, emotionally. Um, I think it's very easy to lose yourself. And I've lost myself before, um, not knowing, what I was doing, why I was doing it. I've never been to the point where I contemplated, you know, ending things, if you know what I mean. I've, never been there, but there was a time when I was severely depressed and I didn't know what it was. And I'm going to get more into that in another episode, but it's very important to just really sit back and realize who the fuck you are. I think that is the most important thing in our life and how we live, um, is to you know stick with who you are and building yourself. I think that's very important. And there are times that you may forget who you are, and it's easy to do when you're taking care of other people, when you have demanding job, demanding family members, demanding just not necessarily, I don't want to keep using the word demanding, but just things that take up a lot of your time, to where it feels like you don't have a sense of who you are anymore. um just like people tease me all the time, and it's partially true, that I'm not Danielle anymore. I'm those kids' auntie. A lot of people tell me that. People that don't even know each other have said that to me in the same way. And it's true. Um, I don't have kids of my own, but I look at those four kids like, you know, they are mine. You know, um, I'm very protective of them. I spoil them rotten. Not saying that's a great thing, but it is what it is. I'm the auntie. Um, they know that I'm always there for them, and that's more important to me than anything financial, anything monetary, whatever that I can do for them. That they know that I'm one of the first people they could call. And but when you constantly put yourself to the back burner, then it hurts. It hurts you. Um, and I think that's how you get lost. Like, from my mom being sick, and we're still dealing with that. Trying to get her well, better than she, has been. She's much better. But there's still some things that we have to work on with her. Um, and it's nothing that you can prepare yourself for, but it's just something you have to do. And, like I always told her, you don't have to thank me for shit. I don't tell her that, but like you don't have to thank me for anything because as much as you've done for me my entire life, still ask if I need anything. Why are you worried about me? Because she's my mama, and that's just how she is. Um, just being able to deal with that. And, I help my grandmother out a lot. I help her out a lot. Um, it's hard being, you know, the the oldest child, the oldest grandchild, and you're a female. And not only are you a female, you're a single female. So a lot of stuff is put on me. And it is hard. I'm not even going to lie about that. But I'm just on autopilot to where it's not even a question. It's not even, I mean, I've been sick. I've been in pain, for certain things. And I'm not even going to let them know. I'm still going to handle my business, and do what I need to do for them. Um, that's just how I am. And I know a lot of other people are like that too. But there are a lot of things that you have to do. I know a lot of my weight loss. It was, it's been a lot of hard work, but especially this past year where I've lost a significant amount, I know a lot of it has been stress. I mean, I've had shoulder problems, I've had back problems, neck problems, constant migraines to the point where I can't even function. Like I've missed work because of them. Because there's like no way. Like even if I wanted to work from home that day, I couldn't do it. Because half the day I'm in the bed. And these are things I don't tell people about because I don't want them worrying. But you need somebody too. But when you don't have that, or you feel you don't have that, then you have to take care of yourself. And that goes back to putting yourself first. So even though I've lost the weight and I'm happy where I'm at, now I need to work hard to maintain it at least. I really don't want to lose any more, but I definitely want to maintain it. Um, so, and here's the other thing, you can't lose yourself in other people. And this can include family, but this is really acquaintances, relationships, whatever. Because people will come and go in your life. And if you invest so much time, effort, money, whatever into these people, and they just, and most people that drag you down, um, I remember somebody telling me years ago, like, I don't know if I was like a late teen or early, no, I may have been in college. I may have been in college, and I think it was one of my instructors. And I remember he said, person who has nothing to lose will cause you to lose everything. And if those weren't some of the truest words that I could agree to or whatever, um, it's like when he said that, I felt it. I was like, wow, I was like, that is very true. And that's when I was younger. And over the years, I have, I have experienced that, where you try to help people, you do things for people, you put other people first, and they don't give a shit. They just want what they can get out of you. and you're stuck with the consequences of your actions. Fuck what they did, because that doesn't matter. What matters is how you handle your business and your situation. You can't control what other people do. Now, of course, I've known that for years. You can't control what other people do. Regardless, there are people who do like to control. There are people who use different manipulation, you know, things like that to try to control you. But you can't let people control you. And a lot of people do. A lot of people are good at it. They're crafty. And you may not even know that it's being done, but it is. And um, it's hard to just, cut some people off, especially if you've had a decent relationship with this person and something just flips, but you feel it in your soul. Or it could just be something that they've done, or you just know that this isn't good. This isn't benefiting anything for me. And I'm sorry, at this point in my life, the only people I want in my life are people who are going to benefit me in some way. And I'm not talking about, um, you know, money or anything like that. I don't give a shit about that. I need you to benefit me in a way as to where I can see your value. And I'm going to sound a little narcissistic here, which I can be sometimes. I'm not going to deny that. But if I don't see the value in you, then you're not good enough for me. It is what it is. So I think when you work on yourself in different ways, it does help you get yourself back. And um, you can't take what other people do personally. And I think that's another way that you can lose yourself is when somebody does something to you, or steals, manipulates you in some kind of way, um, just anything that is out of the norm of what someone normal would do, then it's easier said than done. And I've had to learn this the hard way, but sometimes you just have to walk away from it. You just have to lesson learned, um, you know, because everyone doesn't deserve you. And when you constantly dwell on what somebody has done to you, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be anything done to you, it's just to be like you just have this feeling and you don't want to deal with, this person, this thing, whatever. It could be a job, whatever. It's hard to just walk away sometimes, but you have to. You have to. Um, you may think that you still want these people in your life or these things, or, um, that you can't find another job that, and I'm not even really going to talk about jobs because I lucked out, even though we're going through some stuff. But when I finally walked away from a job that I felt didn't benefit me anymore, and that they didn't deserve me, I moved on to something else. Now, for some people, it's easier said than done. For some people, they can't just leave a situation and just go to another one that easy. And this could be anything. It could be a living situation, a relationship, job, whatever, even some friendships. But you have to do what you have to do. You have to take care of yourself. And that's the biggest thing that I can give, that I hope you take away from this. And even if you're taking care of other people, you still have to take care of yourself. Because if you're not any good, with self, then how are you going to be good to somebody else? You know, I think all that goes without saying, but it's very important to, it bears repeating. So we'll get more into that stuff later on when I get more into the story times and all that stuff. But that was just something that's been heavy on my heart because I was having a conversation and some of that came up as to where you got to bring yourself back. You got to remember who you are. A lot of people joke around and say it, but no, it's real. Remember who you are. That's it. So, lastly, let's get into a few weight loss tips. Now, I'm going to throw these in different podcasts. There are going to be specific shows dedicated to weight loss and just different things, just being healthier, living a healthier. Now, I'm not the healthiest person. I still don't eat the best. I eat much better than I did, in the past, but I'm not obsessive with it. Um, but for the most part, I eat pretty good. Um, I'm usually not hungry all the time, so that doesn't help. And then when I get hungry, I just try to grab something fast, and it's usually something not with enough nutrients. So I have to supplement in other ways. So while I'm doing my research to talk about things, because this is not only going to be things that I've done, I want to have backup to, where I could say, okay, I read this and, I'm going to work on this too. So it's going to be that type of stuff. But these are just I wrote down a few tips that I can give to get you started on your journey to continue on a weight loss journey. And, like I said, a lot of tips that I give, it doesn't necessarily have to be for weight loss. It could be for anything that you may want to change in your life. Um, you just have to be able to, what I'm talking about, when I talk about weight loss, just put what you're looking for in there. So, one of the first things that I tell people is because I have been coaching people. A lot of people come to me for advice and stuff. And I want to help and put it out there. One of the biggest things I could say, and this kind of goes back to the last topic I just talked about, not losing yourself, but you have to do this for yourself first. Now, when I first started losing weight, I said, I'm going to do this for, um, I put so many people ahead of me, so many things ahead of me. It was superficial things like I want to be able to dress better. I want to be able to, play basketball again. I want to be able to not be winded when I walk after a while. I want to be able to work out, without pulling something or hurting something. And let me tell you something, when you get to a certain age, that doesn't matter. Um, I have pulled so many muscles this year. It's crazy. And I haven't even really been working out because of that. Um, and everything that I feel like I've pulled wasn't because I was working out. So figure that out. But anyway, so yeah, you have to do this for yourself. That is the most important thing. You know, I was saying I was going to lose weight so I can hang out with my nieces and nephews and be more active. Those are good incentives that I listed. Those are great incentives. But not once did I ever say, I'm going to do this for myself. Because I think that inside you do want to do this for yourself, but all those things that you list kind of makes you think that you're doing it for yourself. because you may put the I in there. Okay, I had a phone call come in that I had to take. See, never stops. But um, I could go back in the recording and see where I left off, but I don't want to drag this out any longer. Um, I know I was talking about I was still on the first tip that I have is do this for yourself. Um, you have to do this for yourself first and foremost. And I think I mentioned this in the first podcast back this season. I may have mentioned it before. Is that people who never had a weight problem, or even if they have a weight problem and they're against surgery, or they could just be against surgery for you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be surgery. If you want to take, the shots, the pills, some kind of thing that's going to jumpstart you and help you um, do what you have to do. We've seen on shows like My 600-Pound Life where their spouses or significant others or whatever try to sabotage them because they don't want them to get better. And it could be out of fear of not feeling that that you will need them. It could be that you may get too fine for them. There are a lot of things. And I think that there are very few people who are actually afraid of something happening to you. I think that people who try to talk you out of it, it's mainly their selfishness. So that's why you had to do this for yourself. You don't know how many people I know who've wanted to have surgery, who've wanted to um, constantly uh, do things to, lose weight. And they always get talked out of it. And it's usually by someone who's very close to them. And it's just like, why wouldn't you, if you really truly love this person, then why wouldn't you want them to get healthy? Why wouldn't you want them to be happy? You know what I mean? Because if they're just discussing, talking about losing weight, needing to lose weight, then why wouldn't you support that? So they're not putting you first. So you have to put yourself first. You have to do it for yourself. And, you know, things that I'm going to bullet point on here, we'll get more in depth at another time, but do it for yourself first and foremost. Um, how do I feel about my looks? Someone asked me that. I feel that I still look the same until I catch certain glimpses of myself. Um, truthfully, when I look back on pictures, and I don't have many pictures of when I was at my highest, but when I do see a picture of me when I was, you know, overweight and when I was bigger, I'll just say that. Um, I don't, I don't even remember that. I don't even remember, and what I say is I don't remember how I felt. I don't remember, what I went through physically. I don't think about all that. It's just like I wasn't really that big for that long. I Let me see. I've probably been losing weight, on this journey since, for the last 9 years. Then I was then quick, that I put on the weight pretty quick because of my condition. So I have more years of being smaller, being more in shape than I did at that size. So I think that helps. But one thing that I have noticed about my appearance is that, especially like in my neck area and stuff, and even in my face a little bit, I can see it. My skin sags, my arms sag, my, but it's not to the point where it's very noticeable. I usually don't wear like tank tops or anything out. Just not my thing anyway. But I do, like notice like I look at my neck and sometimes I'm just like, oh, you got a old person's neck. But no, it's just loose skin. I still have a lot of loose skin because I lost a lot of weight and I never had skin surgery. I'm going to try to, I really don't want to go under, have another surgery. So I'm really going to try to keep working it out and get as much of it toned as I can. I had a couple setbacks this year, quite a few. I mean, I started out the year in January with pulled stomach muscle. Then, I've been having problems with my shoulder and upper back. I need a new mattress. I know that's one thing, but that's not the main reason. And then recently, over the past week or so, I've been having problems with my neck, like right here. I mean, I can hardly move it sometimes. That's how bad it is. So, you know, um, there are certain features that I see in myself that I like and I don't. Um, but I'm not going to tell y'all that. I just did, but you know what I mean. So, but yeah, I think the biggest thing about my appearance that I would like to change, besides my teeth, and we've talked about that, still working on that, but just like my skin, um, I feel like it makes me look older than I normally would look. And probably because when you think of chunky, I think a lot of people think of a chunky baby. So maybe that's what I'm thinking of, but I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, but that's one thing. Another bit of advice that I can give, and let me hurry up through these last few ones so we won't be here too much longer because y'all know I can ramble. I get sidetracked. My mind goes. But um, don't start exercising, like doing major exercising or any kind of physical activity. And I know people are probably like, what about walking? I'll talk about that in a second. But don't really try to do anything physically, and it doesn't even have to be strenuous. But until, and this is what was told to me by medical professionals, is that you want to at least lose 10% of your body fat, of your weight, I should say, because that's what you measure more. You want to lose at least 10% of your weight before you go to the next level. And then when you lose another 10%, you do a little bit more. It's something about that 10% that gets you. And I will say that it's very real because after, you lose so many pounds, you're able to do a little bit more. And so that makes sense to me. Now, I would say that let's just take it from the people on my 600-pound life, since that's a popular show. And it seems like that's the limit for some people. Once they hit that 600, oh, I don't want to be on that show. I don't want to be like those people, whatever, you know. But I will say this: walking is important, but still, even when I was at my heaviest, I was close to 400 pounds. Walking was hard for me. Like, I wasn't that bad. Like, I was able to walk. I was able to walk. I could walk around pretty good, and I would get winded. And I naturally walk fast, so that was harder for me. Um, having all that weight on me and getting winded when I'm just a person who naturally walks fast. So I don't know where I got that from. I never did any speed walking competitions or anything, but I just always have walked fast. So that was hard for me. But even on my 600-pound life, they, they'll tell them You have to be active, you have to do some things, but you have to know your limits too. And there are a lot of people on there who are bedridden, who can, barely get out of the bed. Even if they are able to travel to Dr. Now's office or whatever and see him, they're still very limited at what they could do physically. Some of them can't even walk from their car to the hotel room when they first check in. It wears them out to walk from the parking lot to the to go sit down in the lobby at his office, his doctor's office. So there are certain limitations that you have to have on yourself when you are that size. I will say that walking is very important at any size. I That's the main exercise that I've been doing is walking because that's really all I can. I did start running a little bit more this year because I'm able to run. I tried before and it just didn't feel right. You know what I mean? But now that I'm down to the weight that I am now, that's easier. So that's just something that, after another 10% or whatever of weight that I lost, now I'm able to do that. Um, I would say about maybe 100 pounds ago, that's when I felt more comfortable being able to go to the gym and do a little bit more. Um, and that was probably close to 120 pounds lost. So, from my heaviest maybe. And, but I would gradually do different things. Like when, when I'm at work, when I'm in the office, and this is even before, I would walk on my breaks. Um, I would take a walk around the building, or I would walk around, a larger perimeter. Um, and I still do that. I still do that sometimes. Um, and I still do that. Or this may not be the best, but like I don't mind walking to get something to eat, right outside of where I work. That doesn't bother me. Um, I could probably do that every day. Not lately because it's been hot as hell, but you get what I'm saying. Um, yeah, so it just you have to be active. Like I'll take my mother for example. Now, she can't walk right now. So we have to I was about to say compromise. I don't think that's the word I needed. But improvise. There we go. We have to improvise with how we can get her legs strong, so she can, get back on her feet and at least get on the walker or at least get over to the wheelchair and then, get up on the walker and, one day she won't need that hopefully. So there are things that we do with her, like leg lifts. We call, the sit ups, where like we'll pull her, to get her core together and she'll go back and forth like that. So there are things that you can do, even that don't recall. I mean, don't recall. My gosh, the words are slipping me right now. I need to stop recording so late. But anyway, let me finish with this. But there are certain things that you can do. And as I mentioned, walking is very important. But if you can't do it right away, don't worry about it. Do other things. Just make sure that your blood is flowing. That's the most important thing. Your blood is flowing and you're following a good meal plan. Or, I mean, because it's a total lifestyle change. It is. It's a total lifestyle change. And it takes some time. That's why they make a lot of people go to counseling and get counseling like even afterwards because it's a huge change. And that leads me into another point is invest in other hobbies. Now, it could be stuff that you were doing when you were overweight, yeah. But um try to do things like and I'm a homebody, but there are things that I have found to do outside of the home. Um like I love to hike And I know that's back to the physical activity, but I love it, especially in the fall. I just love the scenery. I love the smell of it, all that stuff. And it just takes me somewhere else mentally. It's very calming and soothing to me. Um, like I got back into fishing. I haven't gone this year or last year because I didn't renew my fishing license last year and I haven't renewed it this year, but I do want to get back into fishing. I may end up just going ahead and renewing it because I do want to get back into that. I got a new pole and everything, and I haven't even been, but and it doesn't have to be outdoor activities. It could be things that you do at home, um, and it doesn't have to be anything physical. It could just be like, say, you want to get into. I got more into journaling. I want that to be a part of my channel too. I do different types of journals. And it's not only because I love to write, but it's just because I can do different things, put, different ideas and stuff in different places. And that helps. It takes your mind off of stuff. It's time consuming. Um, Puzzles. There are a lot of, and it may sound corny, but there are a lot of different things that you could do that will help take your mind off of just the constant needing to eat right, to focus on the weight loss, which you need to, but I'm saying like so you won't be mentally thinking about it all the time because when you think about that stuff, it drives you crazy. That's why I say I don't like using the word diet because it is so mental to me. Because when I first started gaining weight, I said, I'm going to go on a diet. Okay, what does that mean? You're going to do this diet, that diet. There's about 50 million different diets out there. But if you're not, not if you're not, if you're not in the right headspace and you think too hard about it, from somebody like me, I want to go hard. And when I go hard, I mess up. And I'm sure there are other people that are like that. So, there may be some people who are just fine using the word diet. I'm just using that as an example. But there are some things that you have to do. Um, like, I mean, I've always read, I don't read as much as I used to. And it's probably because I am more active. I am, out doing stuff. When I was more overweight, I would, had no problem sitting down and reading, on my breaks or whatever, um, just while I was at home. So try to find something else to do to preoccupy your time. If you have a family, try to do more things with your kids. Not saying you don't do enough. I'm not saying that, but just something different. Um, you and your spouse, whatever. Just try to pick up other activities, and they can involve food. Um, like because, and here's the thing, a lot of people try not to really talk about food when you're talking about weight loss, but food is a very important part of life, period. You have to eat. You can only go so long without eating. And my mom is in a lot of her position because she completely lost her appetite. And with her not eating for a while and not being able to eat certain things for a while, it really messed up her vitamin. She had a lot of vitamin deficiency, and that hurts too. Like when you have weight loss surgery, they put you on a vitamin regimen. I suggest anyone, I suggest everyone at least take a multivitamin, um, especially when you get to a certain age. I think it's good. I tried to get the kids to take, a little vitamin. I said, y'all don't even have to take it every day, but they pretty good at that. I think I've got them on a pretty good routine of doing that. Because, they're kids. They're not worried about eating the best, you know, stuff like that. But just to try to do something. Um, there are certain vitamins that you take after weight loss surgery because you're not getting those nutrients. Um, if you're cutting back on certain things, then you may need to supplement them with a vitamin or, with some other kind of supplement. And that goes into the last thing I want to talk about. Is protein a myth? It's not. Now, I will watch what kind of protein you intake. The best, they tell you that the best protein to get, now, the different doctors, nutritionists, dietitians, they have a different number of what they think is, great a great amount of protein that you should get every day. I usually try to get about 80 grams of protein. Um, and that's just because I don't eat a lot. But I do try to eat my protein. And what I mean by that is have my protein in my meals. There are a lot of protein bars out there, shakes, drinks, like you can even go to Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and they have protein in there. They have drinks with protein in them now. And that stuff is fine. Don't get me wrong, that stuff is fine. And, I've even been told by, um, dietitians and nutritionists that, those are okay, but they shouldn't be replacements. Um, like, if you don't get enough protein, like with your meal because you can't eat a lot, then it's okay to have a protein shake. Now, you don't want to get too much protein in because a lot of protein is mainly for people who are trying to bulk up. And we're trying to do the opposite of that. But you still need to get your protein in. So, like, don't live off of protein bars, not even protein shakes like that too much. Um, I used to have a protein shake like every morning. Like, that was my breakfast, like that. And it still is to an extent. And even sometimes I would get one like and replace it for lunch. They're okay for a meal replacement every time, but don't do that every day. And that's what messed me up a lot in the past. Was I was just like, I'm not hungry. I don't like to force myself to eat because then I don't feel great when I do that. So I would just drink a protein shake because I can drink all day. I can drink water, coffee, a Red Bull, um, and Premier Protein or my Ghost Protein, especially that chocolate chip one. Yes, and they don't have the Chips Ahoy anymore. I just found that out. Um, Chips Ahoy and Ghost didn't renew their contract or something with each other. So, or Chips Ahoy didn't renew their contract with Ghost. So they have, I can't remember what it's called, chocolate chip or something like that. But whatever it is, it's good too. Um, so that's my favorite one, like for the powder. Um, you can even, like, to get a little extra protein, you can take like, um, plain protein powder, the one that has no flavor, and you can sprinkle a little bit in like, some applesauce, your oatmeal, um, different things. You can put it in drinks, mix it in there, and it doesn't have any flavor, but you don't want to put too much in because then you'll taste all that protein. But just enough that will at least give you a few grams of protein. Um, that will help with your count for the day. Now, of course, you got to take other things into consideration, like your consumption of sodium, sugar, uh, carbohydrates, and, and a lot of people want you to watch calories. I don't count calories. I need to, and I did at one point. I was really obsessive with it. But when I became obsessive with it, I would screw up. So I hate to say it, but I just kind of do my thing. But I've done it. Like I've counted the calories. I've counted, how much protein that I've had in a day, how many carbs I had. And I've been doing it for so long, and I don't eat the same thing. If I am eating something, that I haven't had for a while or a new recipe that I'm trying out, um, then I will look up that stuff. But once you've been used to doing it for a while, you really don't have to keep track of it. You kind of know. Like I know that if I have for breakfast, if I have, coffee, I don't put protein in my coffee. I don't do that. Just cream and sugar. Um, and that's usually my sugar consumption for the day. Unless I have something later on that may have sugar in it. Probably usually not. Um, but well, no, I can't say that because I will get another iced coffee later on in the day. But anyway, but I drink a lot of water. Um, so there are a lot of different things that you can do to overset it, but you don't want to do too much. But let's say that, for breakfast, I have, and let's skip the coffee. Let's say for as like my meal, I have a couple pieces of bacon and a scrambled egg, and even if I put cheese in there, okay, there's some protein there, but it's not that much. Now I do have the rest of the day, but sometimes if I eat breakfast, then I usually won't eat lunch, or vice versa. Um, but I try to still get something in. So I may have a protein shake, and those are usually about 30 grams of protein in the bottles, between 20 and 30. It depends on what kind you get. And if you do like the powder, like whey or something like that, then it'll give you how much, when you measure it out, it'll tell you how many grams of protein. Like if you do the full, like let's say you got a blender bottle and you do like the big one, then or you do like the half one, then you just go by that, and that's how much protein you consume then. But just make sure throughout the rest of the day that you're eating your protein. Make sure you have, good protein for if you eat lunch. Make sure you have a good protein for lunch. And if you don't, try to have a supplement, a protein supplement. But protein is very important. It's one of the most important things that affect your weight loss. A lot of people don't think so, and there are other things too. But in this particular question that I got, like it's like this big thing about protein. That's all I hear about is protein, protein, protein. And I guess it's like a new thing on TikTok where a lot of these weight loss influencers are talking about their consumption of protein and how they get their protein in a day. Listen to them, regardless if they're annoying or whatever, or you don't think they know what they're talking about, you can get ideas that way. That was how I got a lot of my ideas was from a lot of YouTube videos that I used to watch when I first started my journey. So, you can sometimes get, good ideas from a lot of people. And, I may be included in that as well. Um, but you know. So protein is important, definitely. It's not a myth, because that was the exact question that I was given. Like, is protein for real? Like, is it a myth? Do you really not for real? Like, does it exist? Of course it exists, but they were saying, like when it comes to losing weight, because they had the same assumption that a lot of people have, and it is true that protein is mainly for when you're trying to put on pounds, when you're trying to put on muscle. And yes, it is. That's why I said you got to watch the type of protein. That's why protein bars aren't really good for you because they have protein and other things in them that aren't really good for you on a weight loss journey. Now, it's not saying that you can't have them, but you have to just read the ingredients because, like, let's say, like a Luna bar is not going to be the same as a built bar. You know what I mean? So, and there are other things, other snacks that are out there that have protein in them that you can have. Like I would get sometimes, I can't think of what they were, but they were the kid version of some protein snacks, protein bars or whatever. And they were pretty good. I'll have to look it up and I'll talk about that, when I talk about what I eat. I just can't think of what the name of it was because I don't get them all the time. Were they the Cliff Bars? Maybe they were the Cliff Bars. But they have like a kid one that, you know, it has the protein in it, but it's not as like proteiny. You know what I mean? I know that's not a word, but y'all know how I do. So anyway, I've been talking for about an hour. Um, I am going to have to take out a little bit when I took the phone call and I forgot to pause it until I looked at the screen again. And I said, oh, I forgot to pause. I thought I just stopped it, but um, I forgot to pause it. So, yeah. So hopefully this episode did help a little bit. And I apologize for the rambling. I can't help it. I just do it. I just do it. And half the time I don't know I'm doing it, but hey, it is what it is. So until next time, thank you all for tuning in. And I'll be back to see y'all very soon. I'm going to try to keep these going. When I have some free time, I'm going to try because I have a lot of notes and stuff that I need to catch up on and um, talk about. So yeah, next episode, I think that I talked about it in episode 5 at the end as where it's going to be music based. I have to do a little bit of more research before I really get into it. And there's some media that I want to put up when I talk about it, so get those going. And that's it. So everybody, y'all take care out there, be safe, get your protein in, the good kind, drink a lot of water. Don't be like me. And I drink a lot of water, but I drink a lot of coffee. Um, yeah. And then now that it's hot outside, I drink a Red Bull every now and then. So, it is what it is. But yeah, so again, thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you all in the next one. All right, y'all, take care. Peace.